Daddy was a preacher, Mama was a leaver. They both raised me to believe.
Well, Marshall Dane, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
First and foremost, and we're going to get right into the meat and potatoes, as it were. How is it that a young boy growing up the son of a preacher ends up being a, well, long-haired dude in ripped pants and shirts out on stage singing where there are a lot of sins happening?
Jeez. Wow, you opened
That's
up
a hell of a lead.
Just
right off the top.
yeah, so go.
I'd say opposites attract. I was pushed one direction, and when I recognized that it wasn't quite going with my inner self, I rebelled the opposite direction. There are some things that, whilst rebelling, I've kept with me, and there's other things like the ripped shirts and the jeans, and there's other things that I've let go of. But yeah, that's kind of the short answer to how a son of a preacher gets to where I am now. I mean, yeah.
So Michael Jackson's Thriller
I knew you were going there.
was a really big eye-opener for you. But my question is that, as well as, was Thriller something that was AKA contraband in your house,
Totally.
being that your father was a preacher? So was it a lot of faith-based music? And how did you sneak Thriller or smuggle Thriller into the home?
Yeah, like words like AC/DC were, I didn't even know what that was. Even though that was a huge band, I was none the wiser. We didn't know who Led Zeppelin was. I was none the wiser. I didn't know who Tom Petty was. I was none the wiser. Michael Jackson, I have three older sisters, and one of those older sisters seemed to have a rebellious nature. And she would come home with music, and I'd hear clips of Bon Jovi or Motley Crue. I think Skid Row made its way in there.
Oh, baby.
Yeah, and at one point they came home with a Michael Jackson record and like a tape or something like that, and I just remember falling all over that. I mean,
Yeah.
just the music was amazing. We couldn't really listen to it openly. We weren't allowed to. I didn't have a copy myself, but yeah, I mean, we spent time singing songs like "You Are My Sunshine," and
It's a solid track,
it's
man.
a solid track. Don't get me wrong, but like my parents would listen to a lot of instrumental music, and my father, when it came to his music, he would listen to country music. But even when it got into like Merle Haggard, he didn't like it when Merle got rebellious.
So he wasn't a Johnny Cash fan, I would think, right? Not wanting to hear about shooting a man in Texas or whatever.
Yeah, he didn't listen to that kind of stuff. He just, that wasn't his thing.
But was music encouraged for you
Huge.
and your siblings?
So that was the thing that was where I found the mystery in or by that I just mean the inner calling. Just like my father getting called to be a minister, I still also had the same desire to preach a good thing to people. But I wanted to do it through music, and I knew there was other great music out there. Yeah, and so like, because they made sure that we knew how to play music. Like, it was all around. Every Sunday there was a family jamboree. Everybody in my household, my older sisters, they all played music. I was the only one that didn't, because I wanted to play soccer, I wanted to play basketball, play around. But it was so encouraged that when I started taking hymns and like changing them to have like beats and making my own versions of them, they were like, do not do that. That's not how you change things.
This is sacred.
Yeah, like here we are a bunch of years later, they do that to the songs now.
Right.
But when I was growing up, it was so not allowed, and that's where I was like, oh, there's something more I need to try. And so that was part of the breaking free.
I have a number of friends that come from super religious backgrounds.
Yeah.
And many of them have gone on to do things that are, what's the word that I'm looking for? That are against the wishes of their parents.
Yeah.
And in a lot of cases, they've gone on to do things. And when they've addressed it with their parents, they've said, yes, but this is calling me. And so in so much as your father was probably called to faith, this same God probably put in you this call to music. So is this something that you can go to your father and say, look, I didn't choose this. This was implanted within me. How do you go to your father and say, I've been called to this?
In my case, you don't.
You pack a bag,
okay.
maybe?
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Next question.
You actually pack a bag. That was the call I had to make. I was 22, so I was a full-grown man. I mean, by that I mean I was a full-grown man, and I had to actually say, okay, well, I was 16 when I started this process, because I remember asking the question, I would like to be a musician, and I was told that is not the way of the Lord. And then the direction was chosen for me to go against that. I was being groomed to be a minister myself.
I was going to ask you, if they were against that being your calling, they decided that your calling was to be a minister as well?
So
I think it's just part of that thing where you grow up in the family.
Like taking over the parents' business as a shoe repair salesman.
kind of like that. Like, this is your son. He's supposed to be a minister as well. Like, there's just no kind of questions asked.
wow. So then, have you been to seminary? Did you go to seminary?
No. So the short answer to that is no.
Okay.
But I spent most of my teenage life training to be a minister, as well as secretly spending my time, so I would, during the daytime, aside from school, I would do courses to learn about ministry and the Bible, and then at nighttime, I would quietly in my room be recording songs. They're like, I can't believe that I hate you, and like,
Dude, you're Batman. You're freaking Bruce Wayne, man. You got a double life.
And let's face it, there are many different religions out there, and there are many. You can look at the scale of strictness and ease. But if I'm not mistaken, your family was Jehovah's Witness, which there are some very strict rules with that, right? This is not just you're a Protestant and you have to go to church every Sunday.
This is very orthodox.
This is upping the game a bit, isn't it?
Yeah. It's very making the call it's the hardest thing to really do. Like, when I look back at it, I'm like, yeah, stuff is hard now, but I was kind of ready for that. Like, when people ask me, it must be hard doing the music business, I'm like, this is nothing.
Right.
This is nothing. I gave up my family, like, at all.
So, as an addendum to that, do you and your parents, is there a relationship?
100%.
So how did that happen?
Whoa, this is
a great story.
Yeah,
this story doesn't turn bad.
And this is the story we want to try to get from you, because how did you get from there, the young man running away from home to pursue his music, to a point where you can actually develop a relationship? Did you convert your parents?
No. That didn't happen. But what did happen was, I knew that in my heart, aside from not knowing a bunch of stuff, there was one thing I did know, which was, and I'm only now starting to realize, it's your instinct. It's that thing inside you that you're supposed to listen to. It tells you what's right and what's wrong. You know it. And so as a kid, I didn't quite know what that thing was, but I knew I had to do this thing. So my biggest thing was, the first time I moved out, my mother looked at me. I was 17 years old, and she said, I can't believe you're going to move out. You're going to party every night. And I'm like, Ma, I just want to know what it's like to have milk in my own fridge. I don't know why. I'm 17, but that's what I want to feel. So, to move forward, and then all of a sudden it was only like 25, 26 when my father saw me for the first time on a stage. And as I came off stage, he just looked at me and said, I'm proud of what you do. Whoa. And it was at that moment where I was like, I remember that night so specifically. Just coming off stage, I had just finished singing Cats in the Cradle by Harry Chapin.
That makes me weep just hearing you say that.
It's brutal. Man. It makes me weep just thinking about it. When he did that, that is the message that I'm trying to convey with my music. That's the only message I've really tried to ever convey. It's not about what it's supposed to be or what it looks like on the surface. It really is what it is underneath it all. And so my dad understanding finally that, I get it. You're not a rebel. You're not just the long hair. You're not your ripped jeans. Yeah. You're a good guy. You make mistakes, sure, all that stuff too. I make mistakes. People tell you I'm not great. But he actually can understand that, okay, you didn't have to go down this path to still be a great person.
So you're doing it your way.
Right.
Which is great.
It's totally great. And so now both my parents are totally accepting of what I do for a living. In fact, they're encouraging of what I do. They've always been encouraging of music. It was just the pursuing it as a career. And I mean, when he says it's going to be a tough road, I mean, part of me is like, you have no idea. You are right. The devil does live in Nashville somewhere, I'm sure.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah. It's got multiple houses there, probably.
He's got some places there. So yeah.
You grow up listening to Michael Jackson, AC/DC, Bon Jovi. So why country? Why did country become the path of music that you wanted to go down?
Again, a real easy answer for that, although I can make it really long. It's the genre where I can tell the story. It's the genre where I can be honest. It's the genre where I can get the therapeutic release from music, which is to write down all those things that I have about my life that I disguise in a song. I'm like, no, this didn't really happen to me. This is a song. I made this up. But then but the message still gets across. I find that when I'm kind of screaming songs, and not that I ever really was into that kind of music, but other forms of music rely heavily on other attributes, whereas the country music, although I can heavily rely on the music and the arrangements and all that stuff, it can also heavily rely on vocal and the song lyric message being delivered.
When you were writing a lyric, even though you know now that A, your dad is approving of what you do, and B, you're going to do what you do anyway, but do you ever sit and write a lyric at any time in your life and go, maybe I better rewrite that in a way, because if my mom or dad hear that lyric in particular, they may not like it, and I might want... Was there ever a process of being conscious of how your family will perceive specific lyrics?
Yes. I would love to say that I just don't care about or don't think about any of that stuff and just boldly go where I always want to go. But the reality is there's that inner part, that as much as there's that instinct, there's also that conscience that you were innately what you were brought up with that makes you think, oh, am I doing this because this is my rebellious nature? Or sometimes it's more like, am I going to offend my father if I say the word Jesus in a song? We were taught to use the word Jesus is blasphemous. Like if you say Jesus Christ, that's a blasphemous way to use
I've told
his
Matt
name.
that there to this day. There are many people, and again, my wife is the daughter of a minister. So growing up, that was as bad as the F word.
Yeah, 100%. Like we didn't say, A, we didn't swear. B, my parents do not swear to this day. And C, if we heard things like God, that was wrong, or Jesus Christ, or anything like that.
It was just gosh or golly gee or...
Right, which, I mean, again,
Dang.
as an adult, I look back and I'm like, it's all the same stuff now.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
a curse.
It's a curse. And at the same time, as light as that is, it's also not meant to be a reflection on anything else. Therefore, I don't feel as bad when I do things like that.
So then when you stub your toe, are you saying fire truck?
I say fire
Fudge.
truck.
This, though, to me, makes writing country music a little bit more challenging, because I would say the majority of contemporary country, modern country music involves drinking, girls, and trucks within the first verse of a song, always.
When I came out with Love and Alcohol as my first single to go to radio in 2010, I also knew that I had to prepare my folks for that.
So how do you go to mom and dad and say, hey, check this out?
Yeah, check out Love and Alcohol. I'll Be Your Whiskey, Bad Choices, Alcohol Abuse. Here's my new record. My sisters are like, is everything okay? And the reality is everything's great. I talk about, so what I do is this. I talk about all those things now from a perspective of, yes, fun, but I'm not, like, I leave that to other people to write the songs about, let's go out on Friday and drink our face off and have that party, that kind of thing. That's an awesome song, but that's a different artist that'll do that.
Do you drink?
Not anymore.
Oh, but you did.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I could if I want,
Right.
but I just choose not to.
Would you say that you live a relatively clean life compared to what is out there in this industry?
100%.
And that's something, again, that maybe your parents can see that, look, there are worse paths you could have gone down. Your rebellion to growing up the way you did could have been drinking, drugs, just completely, a life of crime. Instead, you're letting that rebellion out in music.
So, and again, I mean, I've tried all the paths. I went from the extreme religious to when I left that, I was like, I'm going the extreme other side of the world. And I did. I traveled to other parts of the world. I lived the life of a musician on the road for a bunch of years. And then you come back to center and you're like, where's the balance here? And then all of a sudden you realize that, okay, well, you know, I could continue down this. And like anything, you can get caught in a trap, and music is no different. You know, it's just easier because you can drink on the job, and it's encouraged.
Yeah.
You know, it's encouraged in the songs we write.
Yeah.
But again, I think to be even more effective, I mean, it was one thing to watch an artist fall down. I think many years ago that was kind of a thing, to see somebody exhaust themselves to that. But now I think it's cooler to watch somebody say, watch how strong I can be, and watch how strong I can be while I give you all of me, kind of thing, like, and still come back for more the next day, and it not be a problem, and it not be a chore. In fact, this is enjoyable, and you're gonna see it. Like, you're not gonna see me struggle. You're gonna see me rock, that kind of thing.
Wow. Soundbite that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Please.
Sneaking across the border, trying to find quarters on the floor for gasoline. Mama crying in the front seat.